Hello everyone. Today we're going to be doing a response video to a user, more known for TikToks that have been shared to Twitter, that have been active for a while, and they're kinda cringe, but they're not really all that controversial to be honest, so I've avoided them. But I figure, as we are sticking with this let's try to be more honest in 2024 thing, je veux être honnête, I am going to instead criticize where I believe criticism needs to now exist, with a user called Fuzz99, active on YouTube, Instagram, and on TikTok. We have a video from the Instagram and two from the TikTok. You're going to understand why the video is titled the way it is titled, and you might understand why I consider this individual to be quite cringe. And yes, they do rely on a particular camera angle for certain shots, because shocker, you'll understand what that means later on. I'm going to be a dickhead. I'm allowed to be. It's my birthday.
There will be no spooky haircut this year. Just kidding! Spooky haircut! Spooky haircut! Spooky haircut! Spooky haircut! Oh!
Yes, there's nothing quite as intimidating or spooky as someone rocking a haircut I vaguely recall seeing being reasonably popular in the mid to late 90s. Am I right to assume the gel you used was a neon Slimer-like green? Now, this video in particular was shared to Twitter by a user called Moondragon. It is a bit dated, and of course it's related to Halloween. But from the over-enthusiasm, you can understand why many, myself being very repressed and of course English, would find this to be very uncomfortable. Another part of me also wants to go, bitch, in what universe is that spoopy?
That's yours, baby. That's so good. Alright, let's see it. Let's check it. Do I look spooky, baby?
So I can't fault the enthusiasm for the spooky and the commitment to have sides shaved to demonstrate their commitment to the spooky. It's not the criticism at all. It's just the first video that made me think, actually perhaps I should be a bit critical of this person. We'll get to some remarks in the next video, which comes from the Instagram. One of the videos, many in fact they have done over the years, titled, I'm Glad You Asked. Why is it titled that? Well, you're gonna love this next part.
How are my pronouns? He, they? Well, I'm glad you asked.
That phrasing is very much their little catchphrase, much like Michael Buffer's Let's Get Ready to Rumble. And of course, much like Let's Get Ready to Rumble, it's equally not annoying. This highly enthusiastic line enables the user, Fuzz99, to be educational as a creator, and that is something I think they take great pride in. So they present their topics as enthusiastically as possible, with some cliche royalty-free music in the background to make it seem like it's on a professional level. The stomping on what must be a chair or a desk, yeah, that's also a part of the showmanship. When one presents these kind of videos to social media and the individual says they use he, they pronouns, there will be blowback. There always will be. Why? Because you in other videos talk about your period. It very much comes across as, and this is somewhat ironic, having cake and eating all the cake. And if someone would like to now type in the comments, Meg, that's fat shaming, I would be pedantic and correct you by saying I'm not calling the individual fat. I am saying that it can look like an individual, the one in this video especially, is acting in a way that can be considered greedy. But then if this is so important to you, your identity is quite brittle anyway.
First and foremost, I identify as just me, baby. Sometimes I debate whether or not I should put a label on myself, but I love being free and just me.
Oh, so you're even more pretentious. You try to seem above labels, yet if I go to your social, your Instagram especially, it says they, he. Identifying as just you would indicate that your name is the only identifier needed. Removing yourself from the conversation, yet using yourself as an authority for a conversation that you do in your educational content. Seems a little reductive, don't you think? Now, I personally don't take issue with you identifying as just you, baby. Not in the slightest, because ultimately your identity is your own. When it comes to gender identity, you can't, though, really do that. Agender is required, let's go with that. In society, to simply say I'm just me would fall in line with a lot of others who don't care for the discussion of gender. You notice the contradiction, right? But then you yourself admit to toying with labels, trivializing and tokenizing. Another gauche tactic used from many years ago to present, to make it seem like you're more unique than you really are.
Secondly, your pronouns are what you want other people to refer to you as.
Because using a name is so 2015. Of course, in conversation with other people, I'd love for you to now actually use a sentence that isn't uncomfortably put together, where using pronouns in front of a person is applicable. If they're not present, then of course those pronouns do feature, because sometimes we, typically, that's not a pronoun by the way, we typically go out of our way to use names or to reduce it so we can get through a conversation quicker. Muscle memory and all that, right? A name is vastly more individual and unique. Oh, but there are 8 billion oiks on the planet. You're right. But your friendship circle is not 8 billion people. And humanity is not one big community. Humanity hates each other.
Back in 2020, when people were putting their pronouns in their bios, I felt really weird and uncomfortable to put she, her. Like, it just didn't fit. It didn't feel right for some reason.
I never subscribed to the idea of putting pronouns in a bio. Not because my name is unique or because I am individual or removed. Because I'm just a bloke. Simple as that. Oh, that makes you he, him. Well, it does say on my passport male, so yes. But I don't need to put it on my bio because you can call me whatever you like. People can call me Omegon, Meg, Omegon, Omegon, I'm a dinner jacket. I really don't care. It means very little to me in the grand scheme of things. It became such a vitally important part of people's identity, and I sat back and carried on working while the vast majority of those I saw on social media bleating on about their pronouns weren't working. They were clearly having mental health crises. I wish there was a service available to help them with that, but it turns out we don't have enough shovels to convert them to Scientology, because then they wouldn't be society's problem, they'd be a cult's problem.
Then I felt confused because I didn't know what pronouns to put in my bio. If she, her pronouns didn't feel right, then what pronouns felt right? I didn't know.
I guess it gets worse for people like yourself who struggle with their identity, because that's really important, understandably so. We need to explore ourselves at some point in our life. It gets harder for you though when you realize, especially by 2024 standards, anything can be a pronoun. If I told you my pronouns were picture frame and wooden shelf, please respect them, you would have to, but then there will be some that say, but that's not a real pronoun. You're right, it's not. But nor is identifying as a peach, a fairy, a vampire, a dolphin, a microphone, a lightsaber, a guitar pick, a poop-shaped eraser. Yet people do it because they think it makes themselves unique and quirky. Like a scene kid dressed in the exact same clothes as everyone else, with the only difference being the decoration on their hoodie. Turd polish. Basically that. And rinse, repeat. For your pleasure.
So I went by all pronouns for a super long time to figure out kind of what I liked best.
According to some recent tweets I saw, apparently God is trans. So I guess by definition then you became, for a time, God. I think I preferred Chuck.
I needed to hear all different pronouns used for me to understand what felt most comfy and like me. But then about 1.5 years ago, I realized that she, her pronouns just don't fit me. I very much am a human being who just loves their masculinity. Being able to choose how I want people to refer to me instead of being told how I should have people refer to me was absolutely life-changing. Sometimes I tell people I prefer he, they pronouns because I'd rather hear more he, because I don't hear it enough sometimes.
You need to learn a few things. Firstly, to stop being so contrarian just cause your statements were obvious enough on that. The second, to balance audio. The music for this you use drowned your voice out, and I can't save that, if that makes sense. You tried to make something seem like it was audience participation until you heard what you needed to hear or wanted to hear. But then you also contradicted that by saying in that same paragraph that you weren't okay with people telling you what to identify as. Make this make sense. Please, bitch. The third video is the most recent video. Now, I have been told that they had for a time left the internet, and I do believe they were less active for a time, but on places like YouTube it would be because, let's face it, they don't get much in the way of views. On Instagram they're still fairly active and their videos are all pretty much the same rinse repeat nonsense. On TikTok they actually talked about their video that made them famous 3 years ago to now, and I thought that's where we'll go.
I can't believe it's been 3 years since my most liked video went viral.
In the video, with some EDM that I vaguely recall from a few decades ago, they approach members of their family and ask them what their pronouns are. I can't play because of the music, the audio from the video, but each person gives their own version of pronouns, not knowing what one is, asking questions in response, mother saying mum, or my personal favourite one being the father, just everything. You know it's a lazy content day when you have to bring back the past to claw at some additional views. And it hasn't done that well on views, and their views are starting to go down. Whereas they had for a while been averaging hundreds of thousands of views on their TikTok, some even getting over 1 million, nearly 2 actually. Content now has gone all the way from hundreds of thousands down to lower end of tens of thousands. So bringing back the old content for a renaissance didn't quite work or resonate with the viewer, but that is the nature of TikTok. Ebbs and flows, folks. Even with this supercharged cringe, you find that the user can bounce back if they want to. It is a commitment after all, and if you are committed to being an educator and an entertainer, but also a learner, learn about yourself as well, an exploration, well, yeah, you're gonna be you're gonna have to bounce back, right? Yeah, that's